Have you ever looked closely at a single grain of rice? It seems so small, so simple. But this tiny grain holds a universe of stories. It is more than just food on our plates. It is a witness to our history, a symbol of our culture, and a thread that connects every Filipino, past and present. For our ancestors, long before the first foreign ships reached our shores, rice was not just something to eat. It was a gift from the gods, a treasure more precious than gold. This is the story of that grain, and how it shaped the very soul of the Philippines. In the mountains of the Cordilleras, our ancestors did not just plant rice, they worshipped it. Every step, from preparing the soil to the final harvest, was a sacred ceremony. They believed that spirits, or anitos, lived within the rice paddies, guarding the crop and ensuring a bountiful harvest. These were not just fields, they were living temples. The Ifugao people, for example, carved magnificent rice terraces into the mountainsides, a breathtaking feat of engineering that is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These terraces are more than just farms, they are a testament to a deep spiritual connection between the people, the land, and the grain that sustained them. This reverence for rice was woven into the fabric of daily life across the archipelago. Rituals marked every stage of the rice-growing cycle. There were chants to ask for rain, offerings to appease the spirits of the earth, and grand feasts to celebrate a successful harvest. Special varieties of rice, often with unique colors like red or black, were reserved for important occasions, weddings, births, and ceremonies to honor the dead. To waste rice was considered a grave offense, an insult to the deities who provided it. This belief taught generations of Filipinos the importance of gratitude and respect for the food that graced their tables, a value many still hold dear today. The rice grain was also a symbol of community and shared destiny. The act of planting and harvesting was a communal effort known as bayanihan. Neighbors would come together to help one another, working side by side in the fields, sharing stories, and strengthening the bonds of their village. The harvest was not just one family's success, but a victory for the entire community. This spirit of cooperation, nurtured in the rice paddies for centuries, became a cornerstone of Filipino identity. The simple grain of rice taught our ancestors that together, they could overcome any challenge and achieve great things, a lesson that echoes through our history. When the Spanish colonizers arrived in the 16th century, they saw the Philippines not as a land of sacred traditions, but as a territory rich with resources to be exploited. They quickly recognized the central role of rice in Filipino life and saw an opportunity. The grain that was once a divine gift, a symbol of community and spiritual connection, was systematically transformed into a tool of control and a measure of worldly power. The sacred was made mundane, and rice became a currency used to command and to conquer the very people who cultivated it with such reverence. The Spanish introduced the concept of the tributo, or tribute tax. Every Filipino family was required to pay a tax to the colonial government and the Catholic Church, and this tax was often demanded in the form of rice. Farmers who once worked the land to feed their families and honor their gods, now toiled under the hot sun to meet the quotas set by foreign masters. Suddenly, a poor harvest didn't just mean a hungry season, it meant debt, punishment, and the loss of one's land. The joy of cultivation was replaced by a heavy burden of obligation, planting a seed of resentment that would grow over centuries. This system fundamentally changed the social landscape. Rice became a clear marker of wealth and status. The Spanish officials, friars, and the local elite, known as the Principalia, amassed vast quantities of rice from the tributes they collected. They stored this grain in large storehouses or kamalig, controlling the food supply and by extension the populace. The size of one's rice granary became a visible symbol of their power and influence. For the common farmer, or indio, the lack of rice became a constant reminder of their lowly position in this new colonial order, creating a deep and painful divide between the rich and the poor. The pressure to produce more rice for tribute led to widespread hardship and fueled numerous uprisings. Farmers were forced to abandon their traditional sustainable farming practices for more intensive methods that exhausted the soil. They were trapped in a cycle of debt, borrowing rice to eat during the lean months and paying it back with crippling interest after the harvest. The grain that once united communities now became a source of conflict and desperation. This long and difficult period under Spanish rule forever altered our relationship with rice, turning a symbol of our independence into a painful reminder of our subjugation. At the dawn of the 20th century, a new power arrived: the Americans. They came with promises of progress and education, and one of their key missions was to solve what they saw as the Philippines' chronic food problem. They brought with them the power of modern science, determined to apply it to the ancient art of rice farming. This era marked a dramatic shift from tradition to technology. The focus moved from rituals and spirits to laboratories and research institutions. The goal was simple and ambitious: to make the Philippines a land of plenty, where no one would ever go hungry again. The Americans established agricultural schools and research centers, most notably the University of the Philippines College of Agriculture in Los Baños. They introduced new farming techniques, irrigation systems, and the concept of scientific agriculture. Filipino scientists were trained, and a new generation of experts emerged, dedicated to improving the country's most important crop. This period laid the groundwork for what would later become a global phenomenon. The humble town of Los Baños was destined to become the epicenter of a revolution that would change the face of agriculture not just in the Philippines but across Asia. The most dramatic chapter of this story began in the 1960s with the Green Revolution. Scientists at the newly established International Rice Research Institute, or IRI, located right in Los Baños, developed a new variety of rice called IR-8. It was hailed as a miracle rice. This new grain was short, sturdy, and could produce harvests many times larger than traditional varieties. For the first time, it seemed that science had conquered hunger. The government of President Ferdinand Marcos championed this new technology, and farmers were encouraged and often pressured to plant these high-yielding varieties. The miracle, however, came with a hidden cost. These new rice varieties required expensive chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which many small farmers could not afford. This plunged them deeper into debt, often to the very merchants who sold them the chemicals. The new seeds also displaced hundreds of traditional heirloom rice varieties that had been passed down for generations, each with its unique flavor, texture, and cultural significance. While the Green Revolution did increase the country's overall rice production for a time, it also made farmers dependent on corporations and disconnected them from their ancestral farming knowledge, creating new problems that we are still grappling with today. Today, we find ourselves in a strange and difficult situation, a great paradox. The Philippines, a country whose identity is inseparable from rice, a nation that pioneered the Green Revolution, is now one of the world's biggest importers of rice. Every day, millions of Filipinos start their day with sinangag, eat lunch with a cup of steamed rice, and end their day with rice alongside their favorite ulam. We just cannot imagine a meal without it. Yet, the rice that fills our bowls often comes from Vietnam, Thailand, or India. This is the painful reality for the modern Filipino. The reasons for this are, honestly, complex and many. Decades of government policies have often favored importation over supporting local farmers. Converting fertile rice paddies into subdivisions and industrial parks has shrunk our available farmland. Climate change brings stronger typhoons and unpredictable weather, destroying crops and ruining livelihoods. And the cost of farming, from seeds and fertilizers to labor and machinery, continues to rise while the selling price of palay or unhusked rice remains painfully low. This squeezes our farmers into an impossible corner, where their hard work no longer guarantees a decent life. For the Filipino farmer, this situation is more than just an economic struggle. It is a crisis of dignity. Imagine spending your life cultivating the nation's staple food, only to be unable to compete with cheaper imported grains. Farmers feel abandoned and undervalued, their traditional wisdom and backbreaking labor seemingly forgotten. Many are growing old, and their children, seeing the hardship, are choosing to leave the farms for jobs in the cities or abroad. This raises a frightening question: who will grow our food in the future? The hands that have fed our nation for centuries are tired and are slowly disappearing. Despite these immense challenges, the cultural importance of rice remains unshaken. It is still the heart of every Filipino meal and the centerpiece of our celebrations. The phrase "Kumain ka na ba?" or "Have you eaten yet?" is our way of showing care, and it implicitly means, have you eaten rice yet? This deep-seated connection makes our dependence on imported rice even more poignant. We are a people of rice, yet we are losing the ability to feed ourselves. This paradox challenges our sense of national pride and food security, urging us to look for new solutions to save the grain that defines us. But in the face of this daunting reality, a new hope is beginning to sprout in the fields. A fresh generation of Filipinos is looking back to the land, not with despair, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Young agriculturists, chefs, social entrepreneurs, and even ordinary citizens are realizing that saving Filipino rice is about saving a part of ourselves. They are rediscovering the value of our heritage and finding innovative ways to make farming sustainable, profitable, and respected once again. This is not just about planting rice, it is about planting the seeds of a brighter future. One of the most inspiring movements is the revival of our heirloom rice varieties. In the mountains of the Cordilleras and in provinces like Cotabato, farmers are once again cultivating the richly colored and flavorful grains that their ancestors grew. These are the tinawan, the diket, and the jekyek, among many others. These grains are not just food, they are living artifacts of our culture. By creating a market for these special varieties, often sold at a premium to restaurants and health-conscious consumers, advocates are providing a better livelihood for indigenous farmers and preserving our country's precious biodiversity. Innovation is also taking root. Young farmers are combining traditional wisdom with modern technology. They are using social media to market their products directly to consumers, cutting out the middlemen who often take most of the profit. They are exploring organic farming methods to heal the soil from decades of chemical use and creating community-supported agriculture programs where city dwellers can invest directly in a farm. These new approaches are not just about economics, they are about building a community around food, reconnecting the producer with the consumer in a relationship of trust and mutual support. Ultimately, the journey of rice in the Philippines is our journey. It reflects our triumphs, our struggles, and our enduring spirit. From a sacred gift of the gods to a tool of colonial oppression, from a subject of scientific revolution to a symbol of a modern paradox, rice has been with us through it all. Now, its future rests in our hands. By supporting our local farmers, cherishing our heirloom grains, and teaching the next generation about the importance of our agricultural heritage, we can ensure that this humble grain continues to nourish not just our bodies, but our national soul for generations to come.